sports fans, and welcome here inside of OH Report World Headquarters for another all-new, fresh episode of the OH Report video podcast. My name is Brian, and glad to have you with us here during the most magical time of the year. That's right. Let the madness begin, baby! It is tournament time for both boys and girls hoops, as we'll get the tip-off for the boys coming up tomorrow. Of course, the ladies, they're already a whole week in, so they've got their district action going down, and if you look at our schedule that we put out yesterday, there's a lot of games coming up live and free this week on the OH Report. You're going to hear a lot of the voices that are on the show here tonight throughout the course of the week. So let's go ahead and meet everybody that's here in the building. On the far end down here, we've got Jonathan Langdon. In the middle, Travis Berardi sandwiched in between. Team J&J with Joshua Banks down on the end. Guys, I gotta say, I know that Travis, obviously, he's dressed for baseball time.
Spring training just started this week, but we still have the best time of year. I say this every year. The best time of the year is tournament time for basketball because we don't sleep. We get one day off in 12 days. We get 2 days off in 20 days, but it's worth it. Can't wait to get this started.
Yeah, no disrespect to Andy Williams, who says the most wonderful time of the year is Christmas. Nah, baby,
Christmas
it's
too,
March Madness, but we start a little bit early, of course, in the high school ranks, and win or go home. Like there's nothing quite like this time of year, and we've got a lot of conferences, conference champions, I should say, other conference contenders that are going to be competing. So we're going to show you the brackets. We're going to break down, I don't know, about a dozen of these tonight, and we're gentlemen here on the show, right? So, ladies first. Let's talk about some of the bigger schools that we have in the area. So, Travis, let's check out that Division IV Northwest 1 district that's going to be going down in Bucyrus. And you see Bellevue, they are the big dogs here, the number 1 seed. They are ranked number 4 in the entire state of Ohio right now by Max Prep. So they feel like this is the team that should emerge. Shelby, the number 2 seed, they kind of slapped them around when they played just a couple of weeks ago, but that's probably the top threat. Upper Sandusky, gone. Josh, you were at the game. You saw Clyde with that upset, and we're all a little bit disappointed that the Lady Rams didn't get through, but the Flyers as well, they matched up pretty well with that upper team.
Clyde shot lights out in that sectional championship game, and it's going to be fun to see if they can keep that momentum against a really, really good Shelby squad that should match up with Bellevue again.
And then Perkins as well. They've started to get their act together. They were in a bit of a bad stretch at the end of the year. Then, all of a sudden, they've turned the corner. They've won 4 in a row. But Bellevue, in the same league, has smashed them twice already. So when you look at this, Shelby is a team that when they're in the tournament, of course, they're always very dangerous. Natalie Lance has her girls prepared. However, the big beast, the number 1 seed, Travis, do you anticipate anybody being able to give them a game?
I think it's going to be, no, unless it's Bellevue-Shelby. I mean, how many times have we seen, when it was, Division II? When we had just 4 divisions, we'll get into that later on, but how many times did we see those 2 teams match up for district championship games?
A lot.
And they were battles, back and forth. I mean, Shelby has the MOAC Player of the Year once again in Eve Schwimley, Serena Ramsey. But can they match up with Haley Reese and KT Terniski?
I don't know.
I don't know. They're going to have to. Schwimley's going to have to go off, have herself a game like she had in the 4th quarter against Clear Fork. Play that a whole 4 quarters. Serena Ramsey's really going to have to show off underneath if they want to cancel out those 2. And then you got to have some of those role players. You got to have a Booker. You got to have a Trinity Baker hit some threes if you want to have a chance against Bellevue. But first, they got to go against a team that's upset-minded, in Clyde that knocked off Upper Sandusky. But I just think Shelby matches up very well against Clyde. Clyde matched well with Upper Sandusky with their guard play, but Upper Sandusky doesn't have an Eve Schwimley or Serena Ramsey in there, and I think that's going to be the difference in that one. And on the other side of things, Bellevue, I don't see anybody even giving them a test until we get the familiar foes in Bellevue and Shelby on a neutral court, wasn't it? That first game was at Bellevue. Home court advantage. Now we're at Bucyrus, a court where neither team has played at all this year.
This is fair.
You never know.
But I think this is the X factor that we're showing some clips of right now. Number 23 that has the Lady Whippets on her chest. She's taken her game to new heights, and she is the best individual player in here. I know that Terinsky, she's about 6'3". She can be a game changer with her defensive ability, and Haley Reese is a shot maker. But what I really like about this young lady right here is she's had the handles. She's always had the tenacity. She's a shooter now this year.
Yeah.
You got to pick her up as soon as she crosses half court, and that presents a lot of problems for every defense.
Yeah, and here's the deal. Schwemley, we've already seen how good she can be in the postseason, and then just Shelby in general. I feel like every single sport, you can't count them out because they make deep runs in everything that they do. and I think we could very well see the same thing with Schwemley leading the way for this Shelby squad. They're going to be hungry against Clyde, of course. Want to make sure you get that win first, but they're going to be even more hungry when it comes around to Bellevue.
And they want to shake off the game against Lexington. We had Live and Free last week to open up our coverage for the tournament, but it seems like every year, we were talking about this before we came on, Brian, every year, it doesn't matter, you throw the records out, Lexington seems to always give Shelby a fight in the tournament time, and they just played 9 days beforehand as well, kind of like the Upper Sandusky Clyde game, but Schwemley and company, they took care of business. Now they move on, and I think that was their kind of that wake-up call game that they needed.
Do you give Clyde a fighting chance? They've got Tatum Jeffrey. She averages about 16 and 9. She's a big-time threat, and if they shoot as well as they did against the Lady Rams, can you picture an upset in any variety or fashion?
I don't picture an upset because I don't know that Clyde has anybody that can stop Eve Schwimley. Grace had about 23 against them in both meetings. Shelby's got more than just Eve. Serena Ramsey. They've got so many girls around them that can shoot the ball consistently. I don't know that Clyde's going to have somebody other than Katie Sheets, who's recovering from an ACL injury, just came back halfway through this year. She had 17 against Upper. She carried them to that win. It'll be interesting to see, can she replicate that? And can Tatum Jeffrey, the young sophomore, have a big enough game on a big stage?
We've seen the kryptonite to the Shelby Whippets in the tournament has been Bellevue. It's been the Lady Red. Natalie Lance, I think, has only got by them one time. That was a few years ago. So if that matches up again, 1 versus 2, there's a little bit of headspace that's owned by those girls from Bellevue. They already got the win over them. That's going to be really interesting to see, and we kind of all are rooting for that matchup, I think, coming up here on Saturday.
Especially myself and Joe Baylog, since right now you have us slated to call that game.
Oh, you on it, baby?
Right now, I mean, me and Joe both very excited. We had that game last week with the Northern 10 Championship. It was down to the wire, went to overtime. Hopefully we get the same, and the Whippets cutting down the net. Sorry, Bellevue fans, but I mean, that's what we do. We like Shelby.
Well, there's going to be some nets cut down in Shelby country, of course, this week. They're hosting everything somehow. I'm not sure how they're doing it all, but the Division 5 Northwest 3 district will be held there at the Whippet Athletic Conference, and Clear Fork is the clear favorite. I think very much like Bellevue when you take a look at this bracket here. The MOAC runners-up, their only 3 losses this year, twice to Shelby, once to Bellevue. So,
and they lost at the buzzer to Bellevue, too. They gave Bellevue its toughest test of the season.
Shelby as well had to erase like an 18-point deficit in the second half to come back and beat them. And Jonathan, I think the biggest game changer in here when you look at Willard as that number 2 seed, of course, no Reese Bedingfield. You just saw them in action. They're a much different looking team without a girl who averages 14 and 10.
Yeah, exactly. So she's out with a torn ACL out the rest of the season. So that was a heartbreaker to hear from Cameron Weirs last weekend when they took down Crestview last week. So that was a good win for them. They let Crestview kind of slip back into it towards the end. It just feels like this Willard team, without Reese on the field, they don't have any firepower to get you through the end of games. And I think the 2 players that are going to have to step up, Cameron Weirs, Corin Geddes, both of them went over double figures against Crestview, and they were able to lead the way. But I think it's going to have to be a committee thing as well. So you're going to have your 2 leading scorers in Geddes and Weirs, but there's so many other players that are going to need to step up. Remember, this team coming into the season only had 8 players. They don't have a JV team. They don't have a freshman team.
They're all young,
now they're
too.
down to 7.
Yeah.
So that's going to be even more tough for this Willard team as they try to maybe get an upset over Clear Fork. But first, you got to get past Huron because that's a SBC opponent. In fact, all 3 of these teams, Edison, Willard, Huron, all in the same conference outside of Clear Fork. It's hard to beat a team thrice.
Yeah, plenty of familiarity, of course, going down here in the Final Four of this district. And Huron, below 500, 9-12 coming into the game. Upset number 3, Port Clinton, who had a nice little 4-game winning streak going. So upsets happen all the time when you start getting to this time of year. It's going to be exciting to see who ends up matching in the final with Clear Fork, who we presume is going to get it done. You look at Edison, a team that had lost 4 in a row. They got a first-round bye. They don't have a girl on the team averaging more than like 8.5 points per game. The Lady Colts have a ton of firepower.
Oh, yeah.
They are deep. They play 10 girls, and they just get after you in about 2-minute segments. I've seen this team quite a bit here the second half of the season. They are brimming with confidence.
Oh, absolutely.
Outside of a 6-minute window against Shelby, this is a team that would have, I think, won like 16 in a row if outside of that.
And, I mean, the MOAC at the top, it's a competitive conference. They finished 2nd behind Shelby as you take a look at the standings right there. But I said this to you when we did a game earlier. It was the West Holmes win, I believe, where they played their best game. They hit a school record 17 threes. Mel Bluebaugh hit 30 points, almost got the school record in that game. But I said that was one of their most complete wins. And then the next game I did, they only hit 2 threes, but they still blew out their opponent. This is Scott Seller's most complete team he's had. And he's had some great teams in the past, as we've seen, but they've run into a Colonel Crawford or they've run into a Shelby a couple times. But this year, it's the most complete team, and boy, do they play defense, especially inside the paint. They may be short at most positions, but they will battle you down there, and that was one of the main reasons why they won the game against West Holmes.
And they're coming in hot, too. I got to give all the respect to Coach Sellers, deciding to play that sectional semifinal game, get another home game under your belt, have a chance to get that big win over Galleon. Don't give Edison a chance to get themselves hot, because that's the only way that I think Edison would be able to win a game against Clear Fork here in this situation, is if they were coming out of that game against Galleon playing really well. So you get the home game. There's a big crowd there as well for that special game. So I thought that was exciting for Clear Fork, and that it's a program growing sort of mindset to take that sectional semifinal game and play it.
You know who else is a fan of Clear Fork? Our own Keaton Cooper, who's commenting on Facebook right now. Keaton Cooper, a graduate of, it seems like, every high school in the area, but he's rooting for the Colts right now, too.
How many honorary degrees does Coop have? You know what, buddy? You haven't worked a game for us, I don't think, during winter sports season. So during the tournament time, just to kind of get our fanfare up, it might be a good idea to start including him and getting him running some top cam.
Yep, absolutely.
We all agree on that.
Yeah.
But, is it safe to say that Clear Fork,
They are a... So
especially with Beddingfield out now.
if you had to, put them in terms of an odds, they'd be like 7-1 to get out of this thing. Mel Bluebaugh is the best individual player, period, in there. And I think even if Beddingfield was playing, she's the most improved player that I've watched personally this year in girls basketball. To go from third team All-MOAC player to, I think she's going to be right up there with Eve Schwemley for the MOAC Player of the Year this year. But what I love about Clear Fork is the unselfishness. Bluebaugh's going to take more shots than anybody else, but they got 3 girls averaging at least 3 assists.
Yeah.
A lot of players on this team are getting their shots, and they don't play a ton of minutes because they go 10 deep.
And here's a stat for you you'll really like. She leads the team in rebounding, 5.6 rebounds per game. She has 1 more offensive rebound than she does defense. She has 62 offensive rebounds, 61 defensive rebounds. You see her build, she looks like a 3-point shooter, but no, she's not afraid to get in there. I mean, all those Bluebaugh brothers that she'd had to fight around as she was growing up, it toughened her up and things like that. But she is a complete player this year, like you said, averaging 18.5 points, 5.6 rebounds, 2.8 assists, 3.8 steals. If it wasn't for Eve Schwemley, by far she would have been the MOAC Player of the Year.
They actually average more offensive rebounds per game than defensive rebounds per game.
Nuts.
That's the type of style.
Because they also force so many turnovers.
26 turnovers a game. And how often, in especially girls high school basketball, do you see a team average more assists than turnovers on the offensive side of things?
They're the only team I've covered this year that's the case.
Only other team that Jonathan's probably seen that is his MVNU women's team.
Yeah.
And Mel Bluebaugh.
Yeah, she's going to be going there next year. So it's exciting.
Represent, baby.
Yeah.
Game
Let them
on.
know.
Game on.
Game on. All right, let's move on now. Let's check out that Division 6 Central 2 district that will go down at Ohio Dominican, where the number 2 seed is Centerburg, the KMAC runners-up. Outside of those 2 losses at Fredericktown, this is a really, really quality team, and I think they've got some big expectations to probably meet in the final against Newark Catholic.
Yeah, I mean, the Lady Trojans, they fired out like a rocket to start the season, but they ran into their Freddyburg rival in Fredericktown. Last year they split. This year Fredericktown just had that. They just had that battle plan to knock them off. But other than that, Centerburg has been a very impressive a squad with Shepard and with Larimore, the 1-2 punch there. Larimore, another chance of being KMAC Player of the Year. She's just that good. And with just the coaching staff and everybody, they have that team ready to go. And I mean, last year they had to run into Afrocentric, who Fredericktown will probably be running into this season. But in that Division 6 Central 2 district, you got to think, they might be the 2 seed, but has Newark Catholic played anybody with a 1-3-1 that Centerburg plays? Jonathan, I know you've seen some of their games. That 1-3-1, when they play it right, nobody can get the ball inside the paint at least, or they can't even get a shot off.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think the KMAC as a whole was a very defensive conference this year.
Yeah.
In Fredericktown, being able to sweep Centerburg, that was a big thing that the Trojans weren't too happy about. But outside of that, they've looked phenomenal. And then it was also, I'm kind of going off the topic here, but I think it was just a weird KMAC this year. Because
I mean, yeah.
You had Fredericktown, they swept Centerburg, but still it was a really close race because they lost to East Knox, as you see.
Yeah.
They're kind of there in the middle with Cardington being their other loss as well.
Centerburg goes to the bird cage and loses at the buzzer to the Loudonville squad as well, who they last year went to a Final Four but lost a lot of players. Yeah. Their best player, she's out with injury as well. The KMAC, it's always a fun. That's why I say it's one of the most underrated small school conferences because anybody can win on any given night.
I think anyone playing a KMAC school, it's going to be a low-scoring game here in the first couple rounds.
Yeah. Everybody's been playing defense there, and if you score 50 points, you got a chance.
Yeah, and the two KMAC teams meeting up here in the district semifinals can't count out the dogs.
No.
Opfer, she can be that ultimate eraser, about 6'1" in the middle of the paint, and just the way that the Bulldogs, they're scrappy and they grind you out on offense sometimes too. If they can really shorten that game,
yeah.
you give them a puncher's chance, don't you, to try to emerge out of this one?
I mean, they've already knocked off Fredericktown. Fredericktown's knocked off Centerburg twice, so you have that confidence that they have. And if Cindy Opfer can put a full game together, I've seen her play really good defense where she has a few blocks and rebounds but didn't score a lot. Then there's some games where she can score but not get the rebounds. If she can put together a full game, be that physical presence underneath, she will give Centerburg fits in that district
I'll
semi.
throw some offensive names outside of Sydney because Melina Strebe, she looks really good on the basketball this year. Reese Todd as well. I think looking forward, they're going to play well against Centerburg, but next year I think I really like their chances to up themselves in the standings.
All right, let's check out the Division 6 Northwest 3 district now. Willard is going to host at the Haas, one of the best environments that you can possibly get. And number one, Margaretta, I mean, they've been the beast. They've been getting through year after year. They've knocked off Colonel Crawford each of the last couple. But seems like the Lady Eagles, winners of 5 straight, the N10 champions, Joshua, this could be the year. You look at Margaretta, and granted, they have unbelievable balance. You're talking about 4 players averaging at least 8 points per game. But for the Eagles, when they lock down defensively, 16 out of the 22 games, they've held opponents to 33 points or less. You're going to win almost every time.
They only allow 30 points a game on the defensive side of things. But let's not count out the fact that Margaretta has to play Winford, who...
There's a Sheldon on the team.
Oh, and maybe the N10 Player of the Year, too.
Yeah, we just found out Brooke Frombar wins N10 Player of the Year. But talk about the fact that they are playing for a district semifinal against Margaretta with their 2 best players being sophomores, with Caroline Sheldon and Brooke Frombar. And Caroline Sheldon is just one of those girls that she's going to get Brooke involved, but don't give her any space, because if you give her any type of space, it doesn't matter where it's from. When she crosses half court, she's in range. And she might be the one that can beat Margaretta herself. And how ironic would it be for Winford to pull off the upset, and we see that rivalry of Winford-Crawford for a district championship inside the Haas, easily the best environment in the area for a district tournament.
The Royals have won 6 of their last 7 that lost to Colonel Crawford, so I'm sure they've got upset on their mind in the first round.
And they knocked off Crawford at home as well.
And would love an opportunity for that rematch, right?
If Caroline can see the ball go through the net early on, that's when she catches fire. I know if she misses one, it takes her a little bit, but she'll catch on. I got their game against Buckeye Central. Also, Buckeye Central, Phil Loy's squad, they gave Colonel Crawford a fight. I mean, they gave everybody in the Northern 10 a fight. I think their record, they told me going into the Upper Sandusky game at the beginning of the new year, they were 3-15 in games decided by 2 possessions or less. They just couldn't get over the hump. The same thing happened this year. They're a really good squad, but it's the fact that they just couldn't get over the hump. But they've given everybody a test. So Crawford already battle tested. They had to fight through their sectional to get there. But Winford, like I said, I saw Winford take on Buckeye Central. They were down 10 at some point. But then Frombaugh and Sheldon took over. Sheldon saw a couple go through the net. She got that confidence. She started getting off those assists as well. And if that happens early on, Margaretta's got to watch out because they got a battle on their hands, and I can't wait to call this game with you. You'll be on the play-by-play for it.
And hey, we're talking about Crawford and how they're going to have to potentially face Winford or Margaretta. I haven't heard any talk about New London.
Should we bring up the Lady
undefeated
the champs in the Firelands, that's true.
Yeah.
Not only the champions, undefeated, and I don't care what conference you play in, because of the rivalries and what's developed in there and everybody knowing each other's game plans, they had to go out there and execute. And 14-0 in that Firelands conference this year. Got to be really impressed with what they were able to do.
This is, I think, the second best district in Division 6. And the best district is going to be whoever gets this out, they're going to have to play. I think it's really interesting that this regional is so stacked.
Yeah.
Northwest Ohio, girls basketball specifically, is always fantastic. And I just really excited to see how this one plays out.
I just hope one thing doesn't happen for all these district squads, and it happened to the Crestview boys, which we'll talk about a little bit. Illness. We have a bad flu going around right now, and if that hits any team, it could really end your season. If Margaretta or somebody like a Bellevue or a Shelby, if illness hits them and one or two players can't play in there, that completely changes things. So a bad time for the flu to be going around north central Ohio, but I mean that's something you have to look for as well. Is you got to see if there's somebody warming up if that's supposed to and somebody it's not supposed to.
And I will say the flu's already gotten to my household,
it's
so I'm
gotten
good to
me
go.
too
I'm good
already,
to go.
but
We've been ravaged as well, but we're better on the other side.
Yep.
So I think we're all ready for this tournament run. We'll be healthy. We'll be out there bringing it to you live and free. If you can't get off of the couch and you have to watch it, all of those games in that district, you can watch right here on the OH Report. All right, let's flip the script again. D7 Northwest 5 district. This will go down at Shelby again. They're hosting everything, seemingly.
Yep.
Number 1, Danbury. That seems to be the team to beat. 20 wins so far on the season. 16-2 when they played against Sandusky Bay Conference teams. And there's some pretty quality teams out there. Seneca East as well, a team that already beat Danbury this year, and then the Lucas Lady Cubs. May I just applaud a 14-8 team that went 0-23 last year. What a turnaround for Coach Grover in her first season. It has been marvelous to watch these young players. Katie Griffey, the leading scorer, and then the Trump Hour girl, who's a freshman.
Yeah.
That they're two big-time impact players, and I think give them a fighting chance here in that first round.
I think it's crazy that Coach Grover's just graduated college and she's already
a
taken
baby.
over
She's
a
already
varsity
back.
team,
Yeah.
taken over a varsity squad, gotten them plus 13 in the win column.
Yep.
And so it's really exciting to see what Lucas is going on with them. They're going to have a tough matchup with Danbury. I also want to spotlight Seneca East because I've gotten to see them play twice. They played really well. And I think Izzy Stockmaster is going to be a game changer in this district. When I watched her play the first time this season, she wasn't shooting too many threes. She was more of a slasher. I watch her play against Buckeye Central. She's hitting every single three that she takes. And I think Seneca East, they're going to be a sleeper, even though they finished in the middle of that N10
tied for
conference.
third at least. I mean, they
Yeah.
came on late.
It's a really good league.
And, yeah.
The top 6 are all that's a tough conference to win in, night out. Lady Red might be the only team that when you saw them on the schedule, you felt like you were probably going to get healthy that night. Everybody else, you had to come prepared with a game plan. The only thing I don't like for Seneca East is momentum's such a big positive thing in high school sports. 3 of 4, they ended the regular season with losses, and in a couple of games that they could have jumped up a couple spots in the standings. But I do like Izzy. She's a heck of a player from what I've seen on the highlights. So this is a pretty interesting district in the sense that we haven't seen Danbury a lot, but when they played against the one other team in there and the one head-to-head that we have, they lost that game. So it feels like it's pretty wide open.
And we don't know about what their conference looks like. We don't know if it's kind of like another N10 situation or maybe like a more of a Fireland situation where you got kind of just New London up towards the top. So I'm going to be excited to see how that one ends up with Seneca East. Lucas as well, going back to them and what a year they've had. So Danbury, watch out.
Well, and you said it yourself, momentum means everything in high school sports, and how much more of a high can you ride if you're Coach Grover and the Cubs on the season they've had. Now you've got a chance to go into a district semi and upset the number 1 seed in your district for a chance to cut down the nets again. They're going to be riding all that momentum. Watch out for the Lady Cubs.
And we could talk a lot about some of the things about expanding to 7 divisions and how people are getting to
we
the
will talk
districts.
about that.
Yeah, getting to the districts a little early, but I think it's unique in this situation that you can go from 0-23 to playing for a district. I think that's really, really awesome.
Pretty amazing for those Lady Cubs. So if you guys have anything that you want to chime in with, if you feel like there's a sleeper out there, no mention of Plymouth, but they did have a 9-game losing streak going into Crestline before they were able to get off the schneid there at the end of the year. So we talked about momentum, 7-16 team. They're going to have a really tough shot going up against one of the N10 competitors. Let's talk about some big girl basketball, though. And Bryce Coder for the OH Report has been down in the greater Columbus area, bringing us all the Big Walnut action as well as Westerville North. So let's bring in Bryce to the conversation here. Oh, and I love that look that he's got going on as well. A little bit mysterious there. Mr. Coder, how is this Monday night treating you down there in snowy Cbus?
Oh, I'd tell you, Mr. Skoronsky, if I were doing any better, I'd be Travis Berardi right now.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm doing pretty well too, but you know who's doing pretty well? Sydney Mobley, one of the best sophomores in not only the state of Ohio, but in the country, leading a team that, I mean, I think you've seen them a lot, but I think they got a legit shot of winning, you know, their district and competing for a spot in the state Final Four.
Yeah, I mean, they are definitely striving for greatness, striving for a state championship right now. This was a team last year that was largely led in scoring by Remy Largent, who was only a freshman last year. Sydney Mobley, obviously a sophomore last year. She was first team all OCC as well as all district and has always had a name for herself. But being able to bring in Sydney Mobley to be able to help out Remy Largent in those moments has really made a huge difference for this team. They have a really good two-guard combo in Lexi Federer and Remy Largent now, but also down low in the post. I mean, Denza Allen has been able to kind of provide that leadership and seniority to Sydney Mobley, and Mobley has been able to play interchangeably in the 4 and the 5. She can shoot the 3 ball really well. She can drive to the basket. I think that's one of the more underrated parts of her game, is she has one of the better footwork games than I've seen in some of the girls' players. But the ability to take it into the basket and put it in, she can pretty reliably get double-doubles with those rebounding efforts, able to work it inside. Super athletic as well. You can see there she loves to shoot the 3 ball. She shoots about 2 a game, makes them just to show that she can make them all if she really wanted to. But, I mean, this is a team that is really well coached. They know each other really well, really young as well. And I think that's something that they're going to have to take a look at, is they've kind of struggled in the past rising to the occasion of some of these bigger games. They felt like Westerville South, the team that eventually won the OCC Capital, was a couple of games that got away from them. They felt like they should have fought back in that one. During the MLK tournament, they lost to St. Vincent St. Mary's, who was a very strong girls team, but they took that all the way into overtime and lost on a last-second shot. And sometimes I do think they're kind of susceptible to some of the mistakes that a younger team may make. Shooting out of slumps, getting a little too aggressive, looking for those turnovers, things like that. But still, a very strong squad. They only have a few leaks in their game. I think they need to plug up for them to be able to make a really strong run to the state championship.
Yeah, let's take a look at that Division II. Well, really, it's going to be the entire regional bracket, right?
OCC.
Oh, we just have OCC standings?
Let's just look at the OCC standings right now, because they played 2 very competitive games against Westerville South, but other than that, they got to be one of the best teams down there in Columbus, but they should easily at least get out of their district, right?
Oh, yeah. They have a pretty easy path to a district championship from here. I think the teams that they're playing are rated below 10 seed, and they're the highest. So, yeah, they're feeling pretty comfortable coming into this one.
Yeah, they're the number 5 seed right now, Bryce. 20 wins, including 8 in a row. 10 out of their last 11, they've been victorious as well, including 9 by double figures. So this is a team that you do not want to see if you're getting into the tournament right now. So give me a realistic idea of, could we potentially see this team in Dayton? Because they didn't have to play a sectional. They're already slated in the district, where they're going to be a huge favorite to get out to the regionals. Do you anticipate this will be one of the 4 last remaining teams in Division II?
I think best case scenario, that's what they're looking at, potentially a state championship game. Like I said, there are a few leaks in their game, and if those really start to come through and some of those mistakes start happening, it might call into question some of the prospects that they have, but I do think they have a really good shot.
All right, let's talk about the boys now, Bryce, because Big Walnut as well, they've been playing some quality basketball. They're going to be competing in that Central 1 district. 13-8, they do lose their regular season finale against Bishop Hartley, a game that you got to watch live and free right here on the OH Report. However, again, they are a huge favorite to get through their district, just because this is the entire Columbus Division II. This is what it takes to be a state champion, Bryce. So give me your expectations for the Golden Eagles when you look at just their district-wide. I mean, Franklin Heights is the other team out there, 14-7. They're 9-2 over their last 11 games. But outside of that, it really does feel like the Eagles in that OCC Capital Division, that they've been tested, and they probably have what it takes to get through at least a couple of rounds.
Oh, definitely. I think they have a great shot at the district championship against Franklin Heights if they're able to pull through the next round. This is a team that came in this year that was really searching for a scorer. They graduated Trent Miner, who's now at Ashland University playing basketball, and trying to figure out who that guy was. And right now I think that question is still kind of unanswered. There have been different guys and different opportunities who have stepped up. Guys like Eli Stump, who can really get the run going for him. Guys like Brody Hatfield, who can shoot the three ball really well, although I do think Brody Hatfield is already being asked to do a lot on this offense and defense, both. But they have guys like Owen Pollock down low who can really contribute in times when they need it, get to the free throw line reliably using that big body. He's the tight end on the football team. They actually run two tight ends in their offense. The other tight end on the basketball team as well, unfortunately suffering a season-ending injury, Jackson Bowers. We wish him well. But that's what they're looking at. I mean, a really strong team that's system-based and not so much of a fast team. They love to run through kind of their rotations and setting up those open looks inside. They love looking to those backdoor cuts along the baseline to create opportunities for themselves. But yeah, a strong team. I do think they're going to have a little bit more of a struggle getting to the Final Four if that is in the cards for them. I think that this isn't a team that maybe is as technically gifted as the girls team in comparison to the other teams, but still a very strong team that has a lot of high hopes for the playoffs.
And I certainly think that having that deep playoff run that they had in football, Bryce, getting to the Final Four, a lot of these guys that are key contributors for them were big-time playmakers for the Golden Eagles football team as well. And I've talked to many athletes over the years about, do you think that a fall sport can trickle down to winter sports and then so on to spring sports? And everyone agrees, yes, of course. You take that championship mentality and then you can apply it towards other athletic endeavors. So I do think that that bodes quite well for the Eagles going into this tournament run. But the team that we've seen a bunch this year that might be the favorite to win the entire thing in Division II, that being Westerville North, and a team that is on an absolute tear, the number one seed. And I think Max Preps has them as the best team in the state, regardless of division. They were undefeated champions within the OCC Capital Division, and they have just been cooking the competition, Bryce. I think they played a team out of West Virginia today, Lindsley. Did they beat them?
I don't know,
I
but
assume
that's how
so.
they're playing the cadets, yeah.
Yeah, and Westerville North, I mean, I think everything's been said about them that can be said. They're really benefiting from this year from that division split. They were competing at the highest levels of Division I last year and playing for a Sweet 16. I think an Elite 8 they finally made it out to, but stepping down to D2, and I think that really benefits them a lot. The enrollment is a lot smaller than I think what we see from some of these bigger D1 schools out there, but still they have the talent to match it. I think the big storyline here is the brothers, Ty Perkins and Tyson Perkins, biological brothers, but also stepbrother of Micah Young, and they have just been incredible playing guard and small forward. You can see some of the moves here. Ty Perkins and Micah Young actually nominated to the McDonald's All-American game, so they'll be playing at the Barclays Center in NYC for an opportunity to actually make it onto that team. So already recognized nationally for how great of this team that they are. One of the really strong points that they have is this diamond press that they run. It's something that Shan Tressley, their coach, has always run, but it's something that's working exceptionally well for them. And, if you're a coach watching at home, whether it's middle school or high school, and you want to run that kind of full court diamond press, please show your players Westerville North, because they run it better than anyone. The ability to recognize and pick up on those traps just shuts down offenses. And I think for Westerville North, the key is going to be getting that effort from beginning to end. I think sometimes there are games where teams that they feel like they should be better than are hanging around. Specifically, I think about Big Walnut, where they beat them the first time by 35, but in the second game, only able to win by about 8. they have these great spark energy moments where they'll be kind of competing with the team. They might be down by 2, might be up by 2, and suddenly you look up the scoreboard and they're up by 20, and the energy is in the room and you can feel it. Just a really explosive, talented team, and guys even down the roster as well. Guys like Jacob Medhain, Ronald Jackson have all contributed in huge ways where the defense is really focusing on shutting down those guards and small forward. They've stepped up and provided a huge source of relief for them.
Yeah, I thought it was really impressive to see them beat Delaware Hayes twice this year to be the undefeated champions in that Capital Division. And they came out of the gates a little bit slow against some big-time competition. Their 2 losses consecutively, I believe, came to St. Ignatius and then Orange in their first 3 contests after they beat Richmond Heights, the 3-time defending champions in Division 4. Since then, have not lost, Bryce, 17 consecutive victories. So if you really kind of break down their district, nobody's going to have a shot at these guys. Nobody's above 500, 10-12, Columbus Mifflin, the team that would have the best opportunity if they're able to match up. So really looking forward to seeing what the Warriors are able to do this year in the tournament. I think that they could be, for all the reasons you mentioned, the team to beat, and that's why they are the #1 seed in the Columbus district, man. So I know that we're going to be following them when they get a little bit deeper in the tournament here, probably when they get to the regionals, Bryce. And you become the voice, I think, for both the Warriors and the Golden Eagles here on the OH Report, man. So we do appreciate your efforts down there in snowy Columbus. Keep up the good work, bro. And we'll be seeing you live and free on our airwaves real soon.
Thank you so much.
All right, our pleasure. All right, before we jump in and look more at the boys' brackets and all the different teams that we are going to be covering, I had a really interesting conversation, or Andy Jardy did rather, before the Western Reserve at Crestview game this past weekend. And Chris Sheldon, not really prompted for this question, but here's what he had to say in regards to the OHSA going from 4 divisions and adding 3.
You know, I like it a lot better when you're a 1 or a 2 seed, but at the end of the day, I still really enjoy tournament basketball. I'd be lying to you, though, if I said I'm disappointed with what they've done with 7 divisions. I think you look at right now at the D6 and D7 in our area, it's really watered down. You think back to a year ago where you guys did the Crestview Margaretta game, and that was a district semifinal game, right? You're just not going to see that now. You know, you look at what that D2 was a year ago with the 4 teams there at Ontario. You know, that's the hard part for me. And I think it really is a slap in the face of high school basketball over the last 100 years in that it was a real privilege to make it to the district tournament. You got teams that are playing their first game in the district tournament now. And it's sad because it's all about money, and it's probably really not about adhering to a high standard, and I'm all about holding yourself to high standards, and I think all we've done is lower it, and that's disappointing for the almighty Doc.
Any other coaches that share the exact same sentiment on Twitter, that they were just bashing the process and how we've got here? Because if you talk to coaches, if you talk to athletic directors, they are not interested in 7 divisions. They do not want to have all these new layers. They liked very much having the 4. They thought that it was special if you were to get through a tough sectional, and certainly if you were to have a district banner, that wow, what a season you've had already just to go to the regional. You heard it right here from one of the best 23 years on the job, and a guy whose opinion I value a lot, from a family who does nothing but coaching. What's your thoughts, Jonathan? We'll let you go first.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting because if it does stay this way 20 years from now, look at all those gyms and look at how many district titles are going to just magically appear on some banners. And some people are going to start having questions like, what happened in 2024 to where this team was able to get so many district titles? Well, they started in the district tournament. They only had to win 2 games to get it done.
Some have only, 4 are already in the final?
4 girls teams already slated.
One
in the
win to win a district championship. That is so bizarre.
It's insane. So I think 7's too much in my opinion. I know a lot of coaches, you were telling me this off the air, that a couple of coaches were okay with expansion, but maybe not all the way to 7, maybe just to 5.
Maybe just try 1.
Yeah.
It's also, hearing from the coach, Joe Baylog, of what the explanation was. The largest 64 teams, Division 1. The next 64, Division 2, and then everybody's spread out through 3 to 7. I can see Division 1 and 2 because it's such the big schools, but then I don't.
Look at Division
Look at
7.
Richmond Heights. They're a D5 team still.
Yeah.
And that says it all. Think about all the years we had the Colonel Crawford-Lucas matchup for a district championship on the boys' side of things. That'll never happen
And
again.
before that, St. Pete's and Colonel Crawford,
Yeah,
like
I
the
mean,
smaller school teams.
And now you've got Crawford at D6, D5. You've got Lucas still at D7, and it's just 5 would have been great. Maybe even 6. Maybe go 2 wouldn't have been as big of a deal. But going all the way to 7 is just too much.
The problem is that I see it exactly as Chris Sheldon does, is that you want to be excited about winning these and putting up these brand new banners, but can you actually feel that way when you're winning a game or 2 games to win a district championship? And in some cases, like Westerville North we just detailed, the best team that they will play to hang that district championship is a team potentially that has 8 wins in the second biggest division in the state.
Speechless.
It's blasphemous. I hope OHSA really takes into account what the people that are playing the games are saying, and not always just looking at how can we get a couple extra dollars for our war chest that, if you're not aware, folks, already has a surplus of $22 million. I don't know what they need it for. They're a nonprofit. I don't know where they spend it. They don't on things that matter to the actual games. So we'll just leave it there. I thought that after he said that, it just made the hairs like all just rise up on my arms while I was listening to it, because I was like, I feel like everyone kind of feels this way. Chris just has the guts to say it live and free.
Well, if you go back to some of the coaches' corner, his brother David said the same thing on the coaches' corner. I tried to ask all the coaches the same thing, and most of them were the same. No, they don't like it. They don't like that it's so spread out now, and the fact that it takes away sectional championships and banners and things like that. Because some teams, they're good enough to win a sectional, but they cannot win a district.
Sure.
And that, especially some of these teams, maybe like the Lucas girls, 0-26, they do get their sectional championship at those one game. It's still sweet for them. They still get the turnaround, but it's just one win to get that sectional title, and now they're into the districts.
And then there's another element to this, because you look at Clear Fork, who opted to play that sectional title, and you take away an Edison that now has to jump straight to districts. They don't get a chance at a sectional title.
Mm-hmm.
They just get to play likely the better seed in the district in the first round and likely not have a chance at a district final.
Yeah.
And we saw, and we got to give the credit where it's due, that somebody had tweeted out the Martin RPI that teams that started in sectional finals this year, 560 of them, there were not even 100 last year. Teams that start in district semifinals, 138 last year, there were 0.
And there's 4 playing for a championship, which I
nearly
wasn't even thought of.
That's nearly a fourth of the high schools here in Ohio. About 800 high schools in Ohio. That's something.
So we'll see if there's discussion at the end of the season. You can only play the teams that arrive on your schedule, and we do have some fun matchups coming up for the boys.
I guess
don't we?
selfishly for us, it gives us more games to cover. It gives us more during the week, because usually you'll see a regional semifinal on one day, regional final on another day, and it's spread out now. So for the media like us, we get more games to cover, but
also,
that's the only thing.
But it also gives us more games that we can't do.
Yes,
There's so much going on this week.
Yeah.
And it gives you an easier chance, too. Like River Valley, for example. River Valley, the 1 seed in their district, they're going to play a sectional championship at home, and then they're going to turn around and play a district semi
the Central
right
District has
back
them.
inside their home gym. And when they play either Marion Franklin or Eastmore, how is it fair for you as a team to go make it to a district semifinal, and you have to go to your opponent's gym and play in front of their home crowd?
And the only reason, because the last few years in the Central District, it was a neutral site, which is just as good. Because we have our Northwest District teams, Northeast District teams play at a district site, things like that. So is it neutral? But because there's so many venues now, so many teams playing, it's at the higher seed than the district championship game. I mean, you look at ODU this weekend, this Saturday, it's from 10:30 a.m.
All
to
day,
about
baby.
10 p.m. That's amazing. But it's all those district championship games, only because ODU said we would do it. If not, who knows what would go on. There'd probably those games would be spread out through a couple days because they can't get the venues. That's one good thing as well about it. You get to see a whole slate of championship games in one day.
Yeah.
But that's it.
It's just not going to be the quality of competition that you're accustomed to in the district final. Still the same amount of games. That don't want to act like there's more games added. Still the same amount of teams. They'll just be playing in regionals when these are teams that probably likely wouldn't have been getting beyond sectionals in previous years.
Now we will be seeing one heck of a boys district final at the Haas.
Yes,
Yeah,
we will.
let's check out this Division III Northwest 3 districts. in fabulous Willard, where Lexington has earned the number 1 seed big time. 18-3 overall, 9-1 over their last 10. The only loss to Lutheran West, who last year had all that talent, and they still got a bunch of it back this season. And that loss actually came before Braden Fogel returned to the lineup. Mansfield Senior slated at the number 2 spot. They're starting to get hot. They've got a nice compilation of 3 guys averaging double-figure scoring, led by Kyvie Roan now in his senior season. Sandusky's the big wild card in here because you look at them, 13-7 overall, but they've stepped out of the conference and they've played a lot of tough teams. And they've really scheduled well outside of the SBC. The Tigers beat them 84-77. However, they smashed Lexington, so it's kind of tough to get a gauge on what type of team they are. They're very young, but those top 3 teams, I think, are the only ones that you would really probably give a realistic shot of getting out of here. Ashland at 11-9, 0-4 against the Tigers and Minutemen.
And I think that's been the case the last couple of years with Sandusky. Is they're just so far up there. Most schools don't really schedule them, and they just come out of nowhere in the playoffs and kind of just take off some teams. I remember when Bruscotter was with Shelby and they took on Sandusky, and that kind of took them by surprise. So I think it's just been a trend in the last couple of years, and they need to start scheduling them more in the regular season.
You know, the last time we saw Sandusky and Lexington play in a district championship game was the year that Lexington went to the state Final Four. It's got that vibe once again, don't you think? Because Lexington's got those big names, especially, you know, with Seven Allen, with Fogel coming back from injury, but then don't forget Joe Caudill. That number 3 guy, 3 guys that can score double figures. You got Seven Allen can dish it out. You finally have Fogel back that can, you know, do anything. We saw that district semifinal against Willard, one of the best games I've ever got to witness with Fogel going up there for Lexington. But I mean, I think that Mansfield Senior, don't count them out, but Seniors lost twice to Lexington, 3rd time's the charm. It's always hard to beat a team 3 times. That Sandusky Mansfield Senior game is going to be a good one, but I think Lexington. I think there's a chance they'd see Sandusky in that district championship game. It's just Sandusky's so sneaky.
And another thing I like and I think is fun about playoffs is because you kind of look at some freshmen that are just starting to play varsity, and they're pretty much sophomores at this point in playoffs. And one of them with Mansfield Seniors, Kalen Brooks, he's a 5'11" awesome freshman. He's been phenomenal, and he's going to be even better here in the playoffs. He's a nationally ranked prospect in 2028.
Yeah, 14 points per game.
With all that being said, don't count out the TY Tigers either.
No.
I mean, Coach Sykes, every year, has got his team playing hard.
But it's been a long while since they've played meaningful basketball late into February.
Yeah.
This is a team that gets rocked out either in the sectional finals or the district semifinals year after year.
Well, what we saw at Ashland a couple years ago, that Sandusky upset them to go to the final and then win the district championship game. I mean, I think it was over Lexington, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just, you see these teams year in and year out that, you know, they catch fire at the end of the year. You never know.
So I'm glad that this Willard district has kind of maintained its integrity and a lot of the teams that we expect to see playing against each other in tournament time. So that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. We'll have the 2 semifinals and the championship in that live and free right here on
I believe you're calling that, aren't you, sir?
I'll be there with Coach B for those games.
Absolutely.
All right, in D4, the Northwest 1 district will be held at Findlay. Upper Sandusky, Joshua, you have seen a ton of them so far this season, 10-4 in the N10 this year in a Rams team. They've got some veterans. They've got some nice young blood on the squad as well. Give me your outlook real quick for what you think about Upper, who's still waiting to see the winner of that Clear Fork, Ontario game before they know their opening round matchup. But then potentially, if they were going to move on, either OG or Shelby would be on the other side.
They played Ontario already this year. They took care of Ontario inside Upper Sandusky High School. Did the same thing with Shelby at home. They went to OG and lost by 23 points to an OG team that's kind of down this year. I mean, we've all talked about it.
For their standards.
Yeah, to their standards, they're down this year, but it's still OG.
Exactly.
But you get them at a neutral site if Upper gets there.
Yep.
Upper gonna run into a Clear Fork team that, hey, they're gonna shock some people if you give them a chance. Garrett Holtz out there in Colts country is a baller.
He's a baller, yes he is.
And on the other side of things, Ontario's got some freshmen that'll step up and play some good basketball if you let them. So the winner of that game is gonna go to Upper, and they're gonna face a really good Rams team that struggles, and when they struggle, it's bad.
And then up at the top of the bracket, the number 1 seed in Elida out of the Western Buckeye League. They finished runner-up there, 8-1 in the league, 15 wins overall for them. So the Bulldogs playing at the Field House. they potentially, that they're seeded as the top seed. Haven't seen them play personally this year, but you would probably assume that they're the team to beat.
Yeah, I feel like that area is always good, and Elida's usually up there. I remember when I was playing in high school, they were always a good program. We played them in summer ball a little bit. So they have something set up there has them winning. Obviously, you see the 1 seed. But we obviously, this half we're looking at right now on your screen, we don't know much about any of these guys.
No, not really. But a team that I know about, and I've talked to Coach Baylog about down at the bottom of the bracket, is Ottawa Glandorf. He says, yeah, they might be a lower seed, but they played some really tough competition. That's why they're the 6th seed, and you got the RPI instead of coaches voting on stuff like that, so they might have been a higher seed if it was for that. But don't count out OG. Now they do have to go to Shelby to take them on in the sectional right there, but I don't count out OG out of that bottom half of the bracket either. If they just knocked off the 2 seed, you catch fire at the right time. Some of these players were just in a Final Four multiple times. I know the best player in the state, pretty much, Colin White, now playing for the Buckeyes in some time already as a freshman, but he did have some role players that are coming back that can still come through when it comes down to it in the tournament.
And in an era where sectionals may not be as close as they usually are, I think still tomorrow a game you're going to want to tune into is that Clear Fork Ontario game.
Yes.
It's going to be very close. Both teams, Ontario took both of them, but I think Clear Fork's been on the up and up as of late.
They have.
They took a tough loss to River Valley, but hey, it's River Valley. We're going to get to them.
Oh, yeah.
But I just think Holtz is going to be the real deal. He usually steps up. In the last 2 games against Ontario, he's been the leading scorer by far. I just think Ontario, it's going to be tough for them to take down Clear Fork a 3rd time because the Colts kind of know what they're doing against that Ontario squad now.
And it's a Colts team that knocked off Pleasant twice.
Yep.
And Pleasant knocked off River Valley. You look at it in the MOAC there, if Clear Fork can play a good game like they did against Pleasant, I saw them play early in the year, they'll be at least a tough out. If they get past there, you never know what they can do. Holtz going up against some of those bigs for Upper Sandusky, if he can play a great game, he could probably wreak some havoc inside. So, look out for the winner of this game. They'll have some momentum going to the mountaintop in Upper Sandusky.
Clear Fork plays really hard. That was my big takeaway from watching them a couple times this last week. Ontario, they have a bit more talented team. They're just very young.
Mm-hmm.
Going got a lot of freshmen that are going to get into the lineup coming up tomorrow. They can't help it because it's their best overall players that they have. So it's going to be a great game, like
But
Jonathan
as I said,
said.
they're sophomores now. That's just
Yeah.
the vibe that you get.
Yeah.
And it's going to be their first taste at postseason. That may be the one thing that you think of when it comes to freshmen. How are they going to do in the playoffs? But when you've got 2 guys like Flannery and Carday Brown who are both in the top 5 in scoring in the MOAC, I don't know how that can.
27 a game combined.
I don't know how that can slide in the postseason. But we're going to see tomorrow.
So it's a lot of MOAC flavor we're talking about right now. But the kings of Flavortown in the league, of course, River Valley, who smacks Clear Fork on Saturday for their senior night. They are an unbelievably huge favorite, Joshua, to win the D4 Central 2 district that will go down at Otterbein. You've seen River Valley, I think, more than anybody here. What do you feel like makes them so special this season?
Their ability to push the ball and their youth. Yes, they have 7 seniors. However, 3 of their leading scorers are sophomores and juniors. They have probably one of the best sophomores that I've seen with my own eyes in Carter Myers.
Yeah.
And then you've got 2 guards in Chase Ebert and Chase Smith. Chase Smith came out against Clear Fork, had 12 straight on 4 made threes all in a row. Into the night with 20 plus, and then you've got Chase Ebert, who now holds the record in assists for the school with 432 when he broke the record. They're so balanced, and they have 6 guys that can give you double figures on any given night.
Sounds like more than just a couple of things are going pretty well for Coach Brown's club, and you see 13-1 in the league and a head-scratching loss early in the season against Pleasant. Since then, they have been virtually flawless. This team, I think, is destined for Dayton. I've just got a feeling about them, the way that they move the basketball around, and all the intangibles that you just talked about. And Ebert, he's the leading assist guy all time. He's probably the leading charge taker as well, and one of the leading just leaders out there on the floor. So this team's got a lot of potential.
And let's get this straight. Central is scared, River Valley.
Yes.
2, 3, and 4 in this region.
All ran.
All in the upper half. All in the bottom half, I guess. All in the other half, away from River Valley, who they won't see until the regionals.
And
Yes.
I don't know that any of those 2, 3, or 4 can beat this River Valley team, especially if it's me, I want to catch them early in the tournament. Don't let them get on a run. Don't let them get to a regional semi or a regional championship and have won 3 or 4 in a row before you face them. Catch them early in a district semi or a district championship and give yourself a fighting chance. Because like you said, this, according to Martin RPI, they're the 4th ranked team in D4, and I see them being in a Final Four at Dayton when it's all said and done.
They've won 13 straight. Their last loss to Bishop Watterson. That was their first game, I think, of the new year. And then that loss to Pleasant. That's all that they've suffered in terms of the scorecard so far this year. So
Watterson's a good team.
A lot of winning.
Yeah.
A lot of winning.
Mark Bollinger last year, big River Valley guy.
Yep.
He now is not the last coach to win a conference championship, which is
Way to go,
Coach
Rodney.
Brown. Shout out Coach Brown. Love you
Yep.
down there at River Valley. But he said, this younger Smith, because, his older brother, pretty darn good player last year at River Valley, taking them to the district final, just one shot away from the regional, which we could have very well seen Shelby River Valley in the state Final
How
Four.
fun would that have been?
But he said his younger brother, though, he can really play too. And you give him, he might be there next year, but the year after he will be. He's already shown out. So Mark, got to shout you out as well. Mark knew that this could be a special squad for River Valley.
So Coach Bollinger is no longer the answer to the River Valley trivia question. Who was the last man to win an MOAC title or a district championship? Well, we'll see. Checking one box so far, but a huge favorite, of course, to check the second one, Rodney Brown. All right, Division 6 Northwest 3 District. This will be held at the fabulous Joe Arena, which I'm going to change the name of tomorrow. So stay tuned for that coming up on Wednesday. You'll see. Colonel Crawford, they have not lost since opening night. The outright N10 champions. They are the team to beat, I think, unquestionably, when you look at what's lurking as the number 2 team. Did beat them, though, at the beginning of the season, Jonathan, a game that you called in the opener, but that seemed like a different Crestview Cougars team than we are seeing right now.
We leaked it earlier on in the broadcast, but this team has been sick all of the last week and a half.
Yeah, it's been rough.
They've lost, 3 of their last 4 of their last 5 games.
3 in a row.
Yeah, 3 in a row.
Twice to
for the
St.
Cougars.
Paul. You and I called that first one that they gave up a 5-point lead late to lose that one. And you're thinking,
10-point lead.
10-point lead. Yeah, 10-point lead midway through the third and then 5-point lead late. But we thought, okay, well, they'll take care of business. Then the sickness hits. They lose to rival Plymouth. And then Coach Sheldon, after that emphatic that little answer to Andy Jardy's question, kind of fired him up and fired his squad up because they go down there and they knock off Crestview, who Mansfield Christian would see in the top half of the bracket, maybe Western Reserve or Winford. But Crestview, they're down a little bit. They get a chance against Bucyrus to maybe bounce back, get healthy, and then they'll get a tough test again in the district semifinal.
And it's crazy to say for a team that averages 60 points a game, but I just feel like offensively they're stuck. There's just a situation where you've got Justice Thompson, one of the best scorers, the best scorer in Richland County, averaging over 25 points per game.
Yes.
But what else do you have right now? Like, Daniel Wells has been cold from deep in the last couple of games. Tyson Ringler.
Everybody has.
Yes.
That's been the problem, is that the sickness has also, it's infected them with their long-range shooting. They tried about 33 pointers against Western Reserve. I think they hit 3 of them.
Yeah.
That's a big, big problem. And especially Justice, he was super compromised in that game. I believe he's coming off of pneumonia.
Yeah.
That's not good for your best player that you're running about half of your offense through on any given possession. So I worry about the Cougars. I certainly feel like they're going to get through Bucyrus, but then lurking in the bottom half of the bracket, I've seen Monroeville a couple of times. This is a team that's pretty fun. They play with a lot of aggressive nature out there. They were able to knock off Mansfield Christian at their place when Mansfield Christian had a nice winning streak going, and then Seneca East as well. Remember, they're the defending district champions way back when we only had 4 divisions.
Yeah.
But with Luke Mason and Lucas Bordner each averaging 16 points per game, that's a very scary team to have to face in a semifinal.
And if you look right here at the Northern 10 standings as I pull those up, losses, 4 losses are to Mohawk and Crawford, who are top 10 in the state in Division 6. So you take those 4 losses, they're 14-4. They had some tough losses early on, but they're another team that's catching fire as of late as well. They're moving up the rankings and finishing at 7-7, but number 4 in a very tough Northern 10 conference. You can't count them out, especially at the bottom half of the bracket. When they get, if they can get past Monroeville, who knows what Crestview has, if they're finally back to health or not. But you could see a sneaky number 4 squad, make their way possibly into a district championship game. And don't count out Westford Reserve. Yeah. That one against Crestview could be big for their momentum. They got to take care of Winford first. Winford has been on as of late as well. Winford, a big upset of Cardington Lincoln, nearly knocked off Northmore with a healthy Jack Swenger back. So you could that could be a very big matchup. That's 6-7 to see who faces Mansfield Christian at the Furnace, and I'd say it'd be a pretty even matchup right there.
And to cap off the bottom half of that bracket, I think it comes down to two big questions. Can you defend? Can you rebound? Those are the two questions, because Crestview is one of the best rebounding teams in our area.
Yeah.
They're +6 in the rebound margin, which is really good average-wise. And then if you can defend as well, they're really good defending teams, and they usually have big wins, especially at home. That was the case against Monroeville. I got to watch that game between them when they were at the Cougars' Den. They out-rebounded them by, I think, 11 or 12 in that game. So, yeah, the bottom half, it's going to come down to, can Crestview start hitting their shots? Can they start rebounding like they did in the first half of the season? But then now to kind of transition to the top half, I like what Mansfield Christian has done this year. They had a hot start. They fell a little bit there in the middle of the season, but I feel good about where they're at. Yeah.
And they've got the smoothest prospect that I think that we have in our own backyard in Davion Mack. He's got just this crazy bounce that I've not seen from an athlete in quite some time. He does in-game 360s in windmills. He's that type of cat. So that's going to be a really fun semifinal matchup, or a championship matchup rather, Mansfield Christian versus whoever emerges from there. But Josh, then the winner will have to play against Colonel Crawford, that's got Braden Holt, the leading scorer in the N10, Payne DeGray, also about 16 points per game, and he's just a big-bodied dude that bruises you on the inside, double-double type of cat. Colonel Crawford undoubtedly is the team, right, in this district.
I don't see a team knocking them off. I know, Crestview, their lone loss this year, but that was a Crawford team coming off of a deep playoff football run.
Yep.
Those kids had about 2, maybe 3 weeks of practice with Coach Sheldon, and any coach will tell you football condition and basketball condition are two completely different things, and you can't get in basketball condition in 3 weeks.
Sure.
Now you're going to run into Braden Holt, who has settled into the system. The young man is a special player that just transferred in from Triway. He was an All-Ohioan at Triway for a reason as a sophomore. He took over both times they beat Mohawk. He took over in the fourth quarter and overtime to allow that win.
MVP.
And he's just one of those guys that can do it all.
And don't count out, you talk about Payne and Braden, but don't count out John DeGray as well. John DeGray came up big in that game against Mohawk, especially late, where Holt got the steal, threw it to John, tied it up. And then the size of the two DeGray brothers down there, they will at least throw you off on those shots underneath, and they will get the rebound. Just two big presence underneath, and then you have Holt outside as well. Parker Weithman hit a couple big streets. Logan Goddard hit a couple. They have multiple shooters that can hit it from outside, but then you have the Twin Towers inside as well. I mean, like we said, they are a very complete team, and I mean, the sky's the limit for them. I so hope we get that Mohawk-Crawford regional semifinal, because the first two were phenomenal going to overtime, and you got to think at BG, that's the perfect setup for something like that.
And I hope before that we get a Crawford-Crestview rematch as well.
Yes.
Because, as you said with the football shape, I think to dissect that first game where Crawford, their only loss, came to Crestview, Braden Holt, first game with Crawford.
Yep.
Everyone else is coming off of a solid football season for the Eagles. And Holt did not make a field goal until the fourth quarter.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was not ready to go in their system quite yet. And they were kind of thrown into that Crestview game. And the Cougars were hot from deep, and I think that moving forward now with how well Crawford's played late in the season, and really, in fact, just after that Crestview game, how well they've played, I think that's a completely different ball game. It's going to be close still, but Crawford, I think they've got the edge now.
Role players win championships, and Crawford's got plenty of them that can do it.
Both of the DeGrays are shooting 72% plus from the floor.
Yep.
Man.
That is ridiculous for the season. And they've got two cats as well in Holt and Weithman that shoot over 40% from long range.
Yep.
So Coach Sheldon and the team that he has, you mentioned they're a complete team. They can match up, I think, in kind of any way that
Absolutely.
you want to play them.
Yep.
They've got the dudes to go out there and make it happen this season. So I think that they'd be a big betting favorite if we were rolling out some odds on that.
Yeah.
Agreed. Completely agree.
All right, in Division 6, if you look at the Central 1 district, Travis, A little bit of K-Mac power out there, of
K-Maction,
course.
baby. We just saw Jack Swenger in Northmore. Now Jax was out.
He's back.
He's back, baby. He was out for a few games. That second Centerburg game were just a complete takeover. One of the best individual performances by a Centerburg Trojan in that game that beat them, and they had a couple other losses, but then they started bouncing back. They knocked off a Fisher Catholic team at Fisher Catholic by 2, where Wenger came back, hit a few threes, especially early on. When 2 nights before that, Fisher Catholic knocks off the 2-seed Tree of Life Christian, who's down there, would face most likely Centerburg or Madison Plains. The game you'll see tomorrow live and free on the OH Report. I'll be on the call. But the Golden Knights, with Wenger back, they're one of those sneaky picks that could at least make a district final. They've made it the last 2 years.
Yep.
They've graduated some big players, but they still got Wenger. Trevor Brubaker as well has really shined this season. He did a lot on JV, played sparingly because of the big senior class they had last year, but he's really taken off. Bo Landon's finally found something underneath. Cole Cuffman can really lock it down. He really impressed Joe Baylog against Crawford last year with his defense in time with Brant Bentley out there. So they have a good squad, and if Wenger can come back, by the way, he's only 6 points away from 1,000 points in his career, so hopefully against Mechanicsburg or Grandview Heights, in a game you can see live and free on Friday on the OH Report, he'll be able to get that. But Northmore, with Wenger back, they have a shot, especially with Cardington. I mean, at the top half of the bracket for them, they get Wellington and then Bern Union, like an easy path for them, but they've lost a few games, especially that game, the Winford, that they lost.
Still can't believe it.
They lost to Mansfield Christian as well last week, so they may be down. One of their players is out with an injury, so this may be more open than you thought maybe a week and a half ago.
Yeah, I think this is teed up for a KMAC rematch. If Cardington can get back in rhythm, it's been a struggle for them losing their last 4, but I think it's teed up where Northmore's going to take on Centerburg in that district
I was about
semi.
to say, but don't count out Centerburg either, because Centerburg,
We could have 3 or 4 teams in that final 4,
Yeah.
all from that one league.
I mean, when you have a player like Trevin Harris, who put up 39 against Northmore, Jack Lawrence, who I saw shine in their comeback victory against East Knox, then you have Bennett Hill scoring double figures as well. It's just tough. Isaiah Suley, if he wouldn't have gotten hurt in football season, because he was one of the top scorers last season. He's averaging about 4 points. His legs still bothering him a little bit, but they'd be more of a favorite. But he's still in there averaging 4.7 points per game. He's averaging 3.3 assists. So he's still doing his thing. But don't count out the Trojans, because they've been coming on as a late. 2 tough losses to Fredericktown, where they started off slow, but then battled back, and then a couple losses to Cardington too. So you'd think they want that second shot at Cardington as well. The good thing for the Golden Knights out of all of this, though, is if Centerburg were to win and Northmore would knock off either Grandview Heights, who it's Grandview Heights no matter what seed they are, and Mechanicsburg. The good thing for the Golden Knights is they're hosting Centerburg on their home court. Like we said, in the Central District, it's district semifinals at the higher seed. But Centerburg, they can get past Madison Plains. I think they match up well against Tree of Life, because Tree of Life is a team that has a lot of guard play as well. But when you have a guy like Trevin Harris who can take over a game, especially against some guards, we very well could see 3 KMAC squads in a district semifinal, which would make me
Look
very,
at Travis
very
is
happy.
glowing all of a sudden, all this KMAC chat. But we're going to put an end to it.
Yeah.
And let's
we
take a
can
look
move
at
on.
our last district that we're going to have some coverage for coming up this next week. The D7 Northwest 5 district, hosted at none other than Shelby. Again, they have all the games, of course.
Every day there's a game in Shelby.
Number 1, St. Paul. They've earned it. They've been on a nice tear going on here lately. Jonathan, you just got a chance to see them a couple times against the other top contender in the Firelands Conference in Crestview. 2 wins for them, and they've got a really exciting player in Nolan McCall.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal these last couple of weeks. He averages about 12 a game. Last 5, he's averaging 17. And he's also averaging 3 blocks as well. He should have had 3 blocks on Saturday, but we had he had 2 of his blocks called for fouls. I should have put the clips in there. But McCall has been phenomenal. The team as well. I kind of brag about them a little bit because I've enjoyed watching them play this last couple of weeks. They have 6 seniors, so they've got experience on this crew. I just think that in this Firelands Conference, they've been tested pretty good as well. Two wins against Crestview. One of them, of course, Crestview has caught the flu.
But even with a healthy
even
Ath
with
on
a
the
healthy,
road,
yes, even with a healthy Crestview,
comeback.
I just think St. Paul, they've been really good this year, and I think they've got a pretty good path in the district. I don't see anything spectacular. looking at some of these other teams. The only one that I kind of see that could test St. Paul is maybe Plymouth if they can make it all the way out. And then you also look at the 2 seed, Sandusky Central Catholic. They're actually under 500.
Yeah.
It's the RPI that has them ranked number 2, and they played St. Paul. St. Paul beat them.
Yeah, Brian, do you think since a couple Winslow brothers were on St. Paul, this is the best team that they've seen since the Winslows were taking them to the district final?
Well, unquestionably, and St. Paul does not have a tradition of good boys basketball. When they won that district championship, it was their first since the 60s, if memory is serving me correctly. So they've had a nice run here of late over these last 5-6 years. And I think led by that powerful Nolan McCall, and it had my top cut of the week last week when he drove around that dude and threw down that one-handed smash burger. I think that they are a large favorite to get to a regional.
Yeah, for sure. And I think St. Paul, they're hot, and they've won their last, I think it's now 13 games. And I think what really turned them on is that loss to Mapleton in overtime.
Yeah.
Because they thought they were out of the Firelands Conference at that point. Except, of course, they knew that they were going to have a shot at Crestview, but Crestview was looking hot at the time as well. But when they took that win, they came back from 10 points down on Crestview. That shifted everything.
Oh, absolutely.
And flu bug or what, I think St. Paul still is going to be able to come through and take down Crestview in the end and win the Firelands.
I was on the call with you for that first game at Crestview, and it seemed early on that Crestview was just going to handle it. Like last year, you and I did that game, and Crestview just ran away with it against St. Paul. It started to feel like that, but then St. Paul hit a couple shots, hit a couple threes to get back in it. They just stuck around. They stuck around, and then they pounced at the end when Crestview couldn't hit shots. I know Justice Thompson had a deep 3 right before the end of the game to kind of tie it up, but that was with about 30 seconds left, and then St. Paul got the rebound. Crestview didn't foul. They just let them run the clock out, and you're thinking, what's going on here?
I was watching that,
and
that
right there was that momentum shift that, okay, St. Paul's just got in their head as well a little bit there, and then the flu bug hits. You're thinking, okay, this is going to be possibly for an outright for St. Paul and Crestview, and then Crestview loses again, and St. Paul, anytime you get into the tournament, if you're playing hot at the right time, the sky's the limit for you. And for the Firelands Conference champions, this could be it with a very, very favorable district.
I'm gonna throw you a lob here, Brian. This seems to be the end of our list, but we've got another Division 7 squad that was left on the
has a chance
list.
of winning their district as well.
The Hillsdale Falcons.
In, baby. Fill me in. Yeah, how about the Falcons? And again, another open runway, it seems, for a team that has not a lot of pedigree when it comes to boys basketball. So that things are shaping up quite well here for Hillsdale to have a very enjoyable postseason.
And I mean, they finished 3rd in the WCAL, a very tough conference. They still have to play Rittman left. That's why they have one less loss than Dalton. But they could get 9 wins in a tough WCAL, 16 wins overall. And I mean, you have Norway and Smithville, who are just powerhouses in Division 5 down there. But Hillsdale in Division 7, the number 3 overall seed. Number 1 was JFK. Number 2, Cornerstone Christian, with the kid that they could face in a regional we were talking about earlier that could go beat John Diebler's career scoring mark as well. But for the Hillsdale Falcons, this is their best team in 20 years. Coach told us, me and Joe Baylog, he will be featured on the Last Joe show on Wednesday after you unveil whatever at the arena. Looking forward to that. But talked to him, and he said this is just a really good team. His son, as a freshman, really good point guard. Then you have the quarterback, Cale Lewis, who was one of our Coach B's ballers. Brady Critchbaum can change a game inside multiple ways, offensively, defensively. They have a very good defensive squad. He plays a 2-1-2 defense, not the 2-3, a 2-1-2 because of Critchbaum's length. They also do a little bit of a 1-3-1 zone as well, but with his length and the speed and finesse that they have, they use that speed from football season. Hey, McFadden's a big player on this squad as well, but they use that speed, they use their defense, and then they can take it inside. And when they're hitting from outside, I know you saw the Chippewa game when they couldn't hit anything. They couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat. But when they do start shooting the ball well, they're a really tough team to beat.
And it's crazy to say, but a freshman coming in, I think he was exactly what this team needed.
Ferguson,
Coming into from last year, they needed a point guard that could facilitate. They can shoot the 3-ball with pretty much anyone that catches the basketball. And Ferguson's able to kind of just move the ball around, and he's made Critchbaum's job 10 times easier than it was last year in the
Yeah.
WCAL. And I love the fact that Hillsdale's in this conference because you've taken on Norway, and that's going to be the best team you see this year.
They gave Smithville a tough test the first time. They were up 6 with about a minute left at Smithville, and Smithville went on a run. Now we saw over the weekend Smithville really handled Hillsdale at Hillsdale, which you kind of thought the first time. But Hillsdale, like I said, when they're playing a good game, they can stick with the best of them. And in Division 7, when you won't face pretty much a team until the regional and Cornerstone Christian or Warren JFK, this, again, a very favorable bracket for Hillsdale thanks to 7 divisions.
And if they go far enough, they could potentially face Norwalk St. Paul. I'm not counting it out.
And also, what's up with all these teams? They win a state championship, or they go long in a football tournament, and then they have a good basketball team as well. The small school teams.
Winning translates, buddy.
Because those athletes that play multiple sports with these small schools.
That championship mentality.
I mean, look at Lucas. They went to the state championship game, and then they should have went to a regional championship, but COVID, canceled that out. So it's cool to see these athletes show out not only on one field, but multiple fields.
And I think Hillsdale, they'll have the best collection of athletes. Maybe not the best basketball players, but that's what stands out when I get to watch them, is they can just do some freak things every now and again that you're like, wow. These kids, they're really dynamic athletes. And Brady Critchbaum, about 3 blocks a game, he really can change everything. Double type of cat, too. So, guys, lots of basketball coming up here over these next couple of weeks. I think that's what we're trying to say here with this couple hours that we've been talking to you. And we've got a lot of games coming up here, live and free. This is the schedule. This is what we're looking at for the week. It's plenty. So,
there's a lot.
Travis, as you look through this week of games, the ones that you're going to be on, where do you get the most excitement? Maybe some butterflies in your belly thinking, like, it's tournament time, I can't wait for this one.
Well, number one is you look down at Saturday, the the D4, Bucyrus Stick, the rematch, Bellevue, Shelby. But I'm also, before that, in a semifinal, calling the game. I'll be play-by-play. Jonathan will be color commentary for that Colonel Crawford New London game, which, hey, we'll see what New London has going into that. But on the other side of things, being color commentator for him, can Winford knock off Margaretta? Can Caroline Sheldon Frombach play a complete game?
I was going there. I just have this weird feeling about that game.
I mean, we can see maybe they do that, and maybe we'll have the rubber match between Crawford and Winford for it. But my number one would be Shelby Bellevue for the championship. And also, I got to put the Golden Knights in there because it could be a special night if, Grandview Heights is an 8 seed, but they're Grandview Heights. They play tough competition. They're down, talking with Coach Blade Tackett. You know him. He's afraid of anything in the tournament. I mean, like any coach should. You're not overlooking things. Shout out Blade. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're sleeping fine with the newborn as well. Getting some sleep at least, because he doesn't sleep during tournament time as it is. But if they can handle Grandview Heights or Mechanicsburg, and hopefully Jack Swanger gets his 6 points to be 1,000, that might be some good momentum as well. A good night at home to get you into a district semifinal. So I got to count on the Northmore Golden Knights too, but I got to go with Bellevue Shelby part 25 for a district championship as my top one.
So you stole my thunder with Margaretta and Winford.
Well, that wasn't my top though.
Yeah,
so there you go.
Probably my top, but I'll go ahead and talk about something else. No Reese Bedingfield for Willard.
Yeah.
Look at that Huron game.
Uh-oh.
It's an SBC rematch. That'll be the 3rd time these two teams meet up. I think that will be a solid cap to that doubleheader. I think it's going to be really close between those two teams. Also, tomorrow, I talked about that Clear Fork, Ontario game. Not very many sectionals that will be too competitive. Also looking up above, St. Peter's and Lucas, they've always played close this year. But I think specifically with that Ontario game, I think we're going to see what they're going to be cooking up in the MOAC the next 3 years with Carday Brown and Trendon Flannery. I think they're going to show up tomorrow.
Yeah, Josh, you get to see some fun games early on, maybe some blowouts later on in the week when you look at some top seeds going against some teams that are in the 20s, or New London, the number 9 seed at Colonel Crawford. But at least you'll get to see some favorites heading into their district rounds that maybe could potentially make a run. So throw you on the spot here. Who do you have like the best feeling about? Let's start with the boys first. Just going into these districts that you're very confident. Not only is this team going to succeed and get through to a Sweet 16, I could see them challenging and even making it to the Elite 8 or who knows after that.
I think in our area, I think that we're going to cover. There's 3 teams that are going to have a chance to get to a regional. I think River Valley is the easiest one to put in that position. They've got the easiest district, I feel. They'll run into their best competition in a regional, which will be like a Maysville, who did beat Shelby last year. And then from there, it's not going to be a whole bunch. I think Colonel Crawford's got a great shot to get out of their district.
Sure.
A kind of hobbled Crestview with the sickness on a losing streak is going to be probably their biggest competition, or a Seneca East, who they already beat twice. And then Mohawk. You can't count out the Warriors. They've lost 2 games all year, both to the Eagles.
Sure.
Both in overtime, where they had the lead by 5+ in the final 3 minutes of the game and just couldn't close it out.
And then,
Are we all going to draft teams right now?
Actually, I want to
furthest?
pose this question for you because I have it too. But what's your bold prediction on the boys' side first, Brian? Mine is I think 4 teams make a regional final out of our area.
a bold prediction, I'm going to say that Lexington does not end up winning their district as the #1 seed.
Wow.
I think one of the
Sandusky
teams
or
pops off and
Mansfield
gets them.
Senior?
One of those 2 teams probably.
The winner of that game has a chance. Jonathan?
You go.
I said I think
that's
4
right.
teams make a regional final. I think 5 teams at least make the regional semis. I think we get 5 district champs, but I think 4 teams, and I think either Mansfield Senior or Lexington's one of them.
I'll play this game. I think one team that we cover, boys and girls, is going to play for a state title. I think it's going to be the Clear Fork Lady Colts.
Let's go.
Yeah, baby.
Let's go.
I've been on record. I've called a lot of Clear Fork games, and I'm gassing them up all the time.
Yeah.
So that team, just how short a burst they play with, the 2-minute window where everyone just goes as hard as they can on defense, and as well as they share the basketball. Wow, it's tough for me to picture them just not being in a game ever. Like I think they can compete with anybody.
Well, they just got to keep the mindset of one game at a time in the tournament as well. Don't let us fill your heads up with all this confidence stuff. Play your game. That's what they've been doing all season long, except for that little stretch against Shelby at the end of their game, both their games. They almost knocked off Bellevue, who's #4 in all of Ohio, at home, but it took a corner 3 to beat them. I mean, they can play with the best in the state. And I can see
Jonathan's
him playing.
gotten them in Dayton
I
with
can
us.
see him at least playing in a semifinal at a neutral site.
Listen
but
to
Dayton,
Coach
Beauty
Murray,
Arena.
do not-
The mini Colts were there last year. Why not the actual Lady
Heck
Colts
yeah.
this
Hey.
year?
And hey, the Golden Knights win the district this year. I don't think Cardington makes it to the final.
Really, you think they get
we
knocked
go.
off?
I think they get knocked off.
The bold stamp of approval from everybody here on the board. I love them all, boys. Looking forward to seeing this all shake down right here on the OH Report over the next month. A lot of basketball still to be played, especially if we get teams that are going to be playing in Dayton. Appreciate you all out there for watching tonight, but you know exactly where to be all tournament long. The future of local sports is right here. So long for tonight. Enjoy your Monday. Get that snow out of here.